Without realising, we're actually testing every day. But you're right, it's trying to make sure what you've acquired or what you've got in front of you works as it should.
I suppose even on a basic level, you know, when you're doing your HTML and CSS, you're going through and you're making, does it work, go back, tweak it a little bit, perhaps a little bit informally. And similar with the BIDT, you know, you've made a website, you go back, you see what's wrong with it, you get your friend to look at it. So you perhaps have been doing it quite informally, but I suppose there's other more formal ways of doing it, isn't there?
I mean, testing isn't just looking at the requirements, creating some test scripts and testing the software. It's, we used to do it all the time when we were in BIDT and stuff. Me, Searle and Zahid, all three together, looking at each other's work and just, yeah, that's not right, that's not right, change that, oh, that's all right. So you're constantly testing, constantly thinking of what went well, what you can improve, and what you can do next to make it better. So testing is all about quality, getting the highest quality of software out to the end users. And every company you go to, so for example, if Costa have an app, a rewards app. Now, a rewards app makes sure that customers come back because they can get a free cup of coffee, hot chocolate, whatever they want. Now, if they're struggling to use the rewards app, if they can't scan it, get the points using the QR code, they're not going to use it. So they might go somewhere else. If a Starbucks opened in Uni, they'd rather go to Starbucks then. Because it's the same thing really, isn't it? It's coffee. So it's getting the highest quality of software out to the end users. And that getting the highest quality of software out there, make sure the cost stays minimal. Because then you're not getting it back for a patch and getting it back out there, a patch and getting it back out there. I think it's iOS 11 we're on right now, which has had so many software releases. It's ridiculous. It's still not working properly. So factors that help build quality. Let's just get through that. So good user experience. So I think you'll have done UX and UI with Yun probably, because I did that a lot with Yun. So good user experience. The end user has to like the feel of it. It should be easy to use, comfortable to use, engaging as well to the end user. Good functionality. So if you're going to buy something off Amazon, once you put it into the basket and click checkout, it should take you to the checkout page and not just crash. And then reliability, does it work all the time? Does it meet the user's requirements of, I want to buy supplies, so every time I go on it should work? And durable, how long before you have to patch it up and send another software release out? I think Facebook do it every 6 weeks. So does the software actually last for 6 weeks? Or does it need an update quicker? Has something gone wrong? So these are kind of the 3 stages when you come to actually test software or test an application. This is what we do. So initially, they'll come to us and say, well, we're going to build this storage solution, for example. So you look at the test plan, you look at the tools that are involved, you look at the analysis, you look at the strategy. Are you going to do waterfall? Are you going to do agile? So which method? Are you going to do a combination of both? So at the moment, the client I'm working on, they're trying to do agile, but they're stuck in the middle. So it's kind of a hybrid of waterfall and agile. That's the worst thing you could do. Because what they're trying to do is get the business analyst, the tester, and the developer all around the same table. But they're trying to do that, they're trying to have stand-up meetings every day to discuss, but then they're developing the software and then pushing it to testing and giving us about 2 weeks to test it. So that's where they're stuck in waterfall. So you look at what are the requirements? What are we looking at? How is the product going to be built? What needs to be included? What doesn't need to be included? And then you move on to the design. From the requirements, we derive test cases. So if the requirement says the end user should be able to upload a document if they have the correct permissions, then you can make a test case saying, if user A has admin permissions, they should be able to upload a document. So you have that expected outcome, and then you have the actual outcome. So if an admin can't upload a document, they failed the test. And then you raise a defect, but hopefully I'll get to that. And then you have your execution, so you're running the test cases, you're tracking your defect, you're doing an analysis, and you're deriving reports as well. And then you have your different types of testing. So I briefly mentioned, obviously I don't have my development, I'm not a developer to say, I'm not really good at programming, but that doesn't stop you from being a software tester because you have 2 types. You have manual and automation. But before that, there's 2 aspects of that as well. There's validation and verification. So validation is kind of ensuring that all the requirements meet what the client wants, what the business owner wants. So are we building the right product? And then verification is, does the product meet the requirements? So it's verifying, have we built the product meeting the requirements? So what did the business want? Did the business want one application just to work on a PC but not on a mobile? But then are we building something that works on a PC and a mobile? That's going to push the cost up, so we have to constantly verify. So validation, verification, are we building the right product? Are we building the product right? Two aspects. And then you have your manual and your automation. So you have your manual testing, so manual execution of test cases. So it's like I said, you have requirements from the business analyst, it's then passed on to us. We have to then derive what the requirements are and make test cases out of it. It's performed by non-developers, but that doesn't mean people who are developers cannot run manual test cases. And end users can get involved as well. So if we're creating a product, again sticking with the storage solution, if we're saying, oh, when I upload a document, it doesn't tell us what type of document it is. Now the requirement might not specify that it has to do that, but then you get the end user involved and say, do you want it to do that? Do you want us to say it's a Word document, it's an Excel document, it's a zip file? So the end user can get involved as well. And executing manual test cases takes a lot of time, because if you think about it, you might have 300 test cases, and there might be 5 testers working at once. And you can get through about 10, 15 test cases a day, because there's different environments, mobile, web, or apps on your desktop.
So if these guys were going to create a manual test case against, say, the BIT project, like they've developed a website or something, what might that look like?
So you possibly have wireframes, or you have some design documents that say, well, I'm going to have a header at the top, which will have 4 buttons: home, contact us, about us, and more information. So then what you would do is, a requirement would be the header should be placed at the top of the web page. The header should be black and grey. So then a test case would be, so you have to verify the header is present at the top and it functions. So you'd have a test case where navigate to the home page, verify the header appears, verify the colour scheme is correct, and verify each button is functioning, and then verify that each button takes you to the correct page. And if one of them steps fails, you stop the test case. And that's a bug, you raise a defect, so a bug. And hopefully I'll get to show you how we can raise a bug and what you should document. So execution time is quite high for manual test cases. And it can be repetitive. It can get slightly boring, because if you think about it, if a developer or a business owner plans to implement this software on phones, desktops, on the web, using the cloud, you have to perform that one test on 3 different platforms. And it can get repetitive, but not only the platform, you're looking at different browsers as well. So it can get really repetitive. And it's boring. Might lead to mistakes, which automation can cancel out. So automation. So with automation, you're kind of creating a framework first. So this is where your programming skills comes into. So you're creating a framework using maybe Java, C#, and it can be created by testers or developers. And it's a high initial cost, because it takes time to create that initial framework. It takes quite a lot of hours. But the great thing about automation is it's reusable. So if you've done an implementation of a storage solution 0.5, and then you're going to update to a version 1.0 in 6 months' time, you can reuse the test cases if the core functionality is the same. So you then don't have to go back to the test cases and rerun them one by one. If you set up automation, it's just clicking one button, and it takes maybe half an hour to run through 5 test cases. And then you get a report at the end of it, this passed and this failed, with screenshots, which is really good. It reduces human error as well, because it's a computer running it. Unless you've changed the code or the data, there won't be any error.
Could these guys use automated testing in some fashion without, coding their own test? Is there a way they could use automated testing?
Not really, no.
Right.
It's mostly manual, because
manual.
You need the tool like Selenium WebDriver to build the framework.
I see.
And then you'd need some sort of testing tools as well.
But I suppose if your test case was, does this website load quickly or not, I suppose there are automated tools, aren't there, that you could use to at least answer that question?
Yeah, so the way you do that would be performance testing. So
Okay.
it's performance and load testing where the user would give you a certain parameter, so the web page should load in half a second.
Yeah.
And then you'd use the tools at your disposal to do it.
Right.
So automation is really useful, and automation is, as a testing type, is in demand. It's growing and growing and growing. But that doesn't mean that you can just sit back and relax when you're doing automation, because it needs to be set up, and secondly, it needs a manual user input. So what we call regression testing is when you found, let's say, 5 defects, and you need to retest these defects, but you wouldn't just retest that core functionality, you'd retest the functionality surrounding it as well. Because when a developer fixes code, he's fixed one thing, but he might have broken 2 things. So when you do a regression test, you need to keep an eye on that. So again, when you're doing automation, you can't just sit back and relax. You have to keep an eye on it, you have to keep on top of it. And let's move on to why we should test. I'm sure you all know why we should test. So I'll open it up again. Why should we test?
To make sure that everything works, make sure that the website's not going to crash when people use it and stuff like that.
Okay. So that's kind of the end user perspective, so it works for them. What about any business perspectives, anything like that?
If an end user's using it and he's not getting through to you or whatever, then obviously they're going to turn away from it.
So they're losing money?
Yeah, they're losing.
Right, okay. I think that's one of the main reasons businesses test. So here's a few examples. So I don't know if you remember, this one happened recently. British Airways, they've outsourced their IT and their software to India, including the hardware and the software. And I think it was last year when they had this outage at, I think it was Heathrow, Gatwick, and then it spread. And it cost them £80 million just for, I think it was one day they had an outage, and it cost them £80 million. But it says over 3 days, left passengers stranded, and that's what it looks like. So when you're going to holidays, Spain, Morocco, wherever we go, you don't want to be stuck in an airport for 12 hours, 24 hours. You want to check in and get to your flight on time. So that cost British Airways £80 million. Next, again, this is kind of like the smart thermostat for your homes, which is becoming increasingly popular. They had a software bug where the temperature, I think, got stuck and it became really slow, and it was really cold. So if you can imagine, if you're in a home with your parents, your grandparents, and it's stuck at, let's say, 18 degrees, where you want, when it was snowing last week, and you want it on 25 and it doesn't go up, someone could freeze to death. So again, a software error led to this problem. And Amazon, what they did was, in the marketplace, selling things like it was a penny, yeah, so it was 1 pence, and they lost around £20,000 overnight. So I think before, companies had this mindset of, yeah, developers can test their own code, I'm sure it'll be fine, let's roll it out. But now it's becoming increasingly more popular to get testers involved from the first stage. So instead of waterfall, where developers, business analysts write the requirements, the developers then take it on, create the software, give it to testers, test it, and then it goes back again, goes back, comes back again. It takes a long time. So when you're working agile, you're around the same table. When the requirement's being created, the tester's there and the developer's there as well. So if they think something's not right, they can raise it in 5 minutes instead of waiting 3-4 weeks to raise it.
Do you know, it's an interesting point, actually. I suppose there's more careers, as the digital industry is growing, more careers are blossoming. So what 20 years ago would have been the job of the web developer, now the web developer's job is to make the website, and other people come in and they do the other aspects of it, like the search engine optimization, or the the graphics, or the wireframes, or the user experience, or the testing, or whatever. It's all become distinct fields now, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So because people are starting to learn that if these errors happen, it's costing them money, and it's less time end users spend on the applications, and as they say in business, time is money.
So I suppose you can be multi-skilled, can't you? But ultimately, these things, it's so serious that they are assigned to themselves, aren't they? This is a job, this is a team in itself that shouldn't be lumped in with another team, I guess.
100%. A lot of developers, after a couple of years, might switch up to testing.
Yeah.
Because developing can get heavy on the mind. It's constantly looking at a computer screen and coding. So we have at Rock a lot of developers that have come on to become testers, and it's really good because they can understand how developers can possibly make these mistakes, but then they can pick these mistakes out and explain to the developer, this is what happened, this is what we need you to fix. So you can have a lot of motor skills and then settle in one area. It's not a problem, it just makes you more versatile.
I think that's an interesting point. I think in this day and age, people are living longer and working longer. You can have 2 and 3 different careers, can't you? But if you've been a programmer for 15, 20 years, you might be ready to do something different. You might be ready to earn more money, you know, and just have a change, you know. So you can imagine that's a fairly good career path from one to the other.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the grads that started with me in July, he did a physics degree.
Yeah.
And he's come into testing because he thought, oh, this looks interesting, why not give it a shot? And, you know, that's why I say when you stumble upon a job, whether it's testing or anything else, if you get put off because you might not have the skills, look deeper into it. And apply, you've got nothing to lose from applying, honestly. When I started applying in February, my one regret was not starting applying earlier because there was one role at the Department of Work and Pensions, which closed in November. If you think about it, you're going to start the job the year after in September, and it closes in November. So if you see a job that you think you might be interested in, just go for it. You've got nothing to lose. So if we test, who benefits? So if you think about it, there's the cost, the application looks better, it works better, who benefits?
The business and the end user.
The business and the end user, yeah, exactly. So the business always want things done quickly, but then they want the highest quality. But then, what about efficiency? So I always say that there's quality, speed and efficiency, 3 things. One of them has to give. So if you want good quality, you can't expect high speeds of testing, or even high speeds of development. So then, good quality and efficiency will bring the cost down. But then, if you're okay to settle for low quality, fast working, bit of efficiency will bring the cost down. But essentially, there needs to be a fine balance so that everyone can benefit.
What do you mean by quality?
So quality as in, I can test, and if it works on a Windows 8 machine, I might not go on Windows 10 and test it, because it works on Windows 8. It is still the Windows platform, why shouldn't it work?
Not story, is it?
So the quality drops in terms of standards of testing.
So quality's, everything works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
on every platform.
yeah, and
Yeah.
when you push to deadlines like this solution I was working on just 2 weeks ago, which has now gone live. So we're creating a software solution for Switzerland because there was a data breach in this company. Now, we've told them you can't expect to test everything in this short amount of time. We made it clear from the start. So they said, oh, that's fine, just do it, I'm sure you can get it done. And then we couldn't test everything on Windows 8. But the Swiss have moved the majority of that company to Windows 10. So they've taken a risk. As testers, we can only advise the company, we can only advise the stakeholders that it's a risk if you go forward with this.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to them if they want to carry on with the risk. Because in the end, what happens is they just come back to us and say, it's not working.
How do you go about testing on different platforms like Windows 8, Windows 10, different versions of iOS and things? Do you have different machines, or is there another way around it?
There's 2 ways. So we can have different machines, or we can have virtual machines.
Mm-hmm.
So our main office, well, not for Rock, but for the client I'm working on, is based in London.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they can't constantly ship machines over to Charlie. So what they do is they'll set up a virtual machine in the London office, and they'll give us a username, a password and a server to log on to it. And let's just start using a virtual machine.
That's good.
But at the moment, the project I'm working on I have a massive satchel of a Mac, a Win 8 and a Win 10 machine, and an iPhone and an iPad. So if I'm working from home like I'm doing today, I have to carry that big lump with me home. So testing gives you an exposure to a lot of different platforms, which is really interesting because you just wouldn't think these things would go wrong. It's really interesting. So yeah, by quality I mean that. So if the project is demanding for you to get it done quickly, the quality of testing will be there. Right, so like I said, I'm not going to speak again and again. I'm going to get you to do a defective challenge. So this is something we do at Rock. So it initially started in 2012 with test professionals coming to a pub organised by Rock, and going onto websites and kind of trying to break them, find defects, find bugs, lots of beer, lots of pizza, all free, you know, loads of prizes, and it's just a good laugh. We then changed it up so we could invite students, so big bar of beer and coffee, and then we changed it so we'd do it for students. So last time we did it was just 2 weeks ago. We had Edge Hill, John Moore, Salford, Bolton, Preston, all come to our lab. It's about 55, 60 people, and we tested. This was our Halloween special where we had about 70 people. And it's just basically, you have loads of students. You don't even have to have testing experience. You just bring a device, plug in, and get tested. And it's just really good fun. It's a really good competition because you're just competing against each other, trying to get the best score. And yeah, so what is a defect? So defect is something unexpected in software, so broken link. So if you navigate to BBC and it says 404 error, that's a defect. If you navigate to BBC and the article is a spelling mistake, that's a defect. So it's just a bug that you find. So maybe a search function not working. Go on to Argos, search for a PS4, brings up an Xbox. That's a defect. And like I said, spelling or grammatical errors.
Just on the topic of search, do you go a step backwards? Say, for example, if the website is found in the search engines, would you go back that far to the search engine, or are you just focusing just on the website?
We just focus on the actual application that they've built. Yeah, some companies might go that far, but those companies would be in-house software testing companies. Yeah. So like Zahid, who was with us in BIT, he's testing as well. Yeah. But he's testing for a company called Paragon. So they test their own software. Right. So they could possibly go back to the search engine and make sure from here onwards it works. Yeah. So it depends on the objectives of the project and the scope and the time and all the rest of it, doesn't it? Yeah. And because Rock are more of a consultancy base, we don't test our own software, test someone else's, we leave it up to them to do that. I see. Because they'll have their own test team as well. Right. But maybe it's just 5 people instead of 20. I understand. So there's managers, leads, and then testers. Yeah. So they need different levels. Right, so we're going to do a bit of a defective challenge. I've bought bells as well, so it's going to be good. So I'm going to give you a list of websites soon enough. You're going to find the defect, complete a defect record, ring a bell, reproduce the defect for me, and then we'll agree at severity. So when we're raising defects, we have severities and priorities, but we're going to focus on severities today. So how severe is that defect to the project? Is it critical where we just stop and get that defect fixed? Is it moderate where, okay, that's not working, they're working on a fix, but let's continue testing some other things? Or is it just kind of an image, not as pixelated, or there's a spelling mistake, we can live with that, cosmetic? And this is kind of the defect log that I've created for you guys. It's a bit hard to see, but I'm sure we can.
It's in the spreadsheet, isn't it, which is on Blackboard, yeah.
This is the spreadsheet, basically. Yep. So when you're kind of raising the defects, we use tools such as ALM and Jira, but because obviously we don't have access to those tools here, I've created a spreadsheet. So what we do is initially give it a defect ID, so 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Give it a good summary. So for example, if the project is called example project, we'd call it example project, the environment we're testing on. So we have 2 different environments. We have the test environment and the production environment. So the production environment is the environment set up, ready to be pushed live. We don't test on that. And then you have a test environment, which is the duplicate, exact copy of that environment, but we test on that, find bugs, then we'll make changes on that environment to fix things, copy it over to production, and then push that live. So we have 2 environments. So, example project, test environment, the device or the operating system you're using, so Mac OS and MacBook Pro, and then give it a summary, when search function does not work correctly. And then you'd give it a status, so is it a new defect? Is it something that the developer is aware of, so will it be open? Is it something that's been fixed, so it's closed? Or is it something that's ready for retest? Developers fixed it, retest it, and it's working. Then, like I said, you have your severity, priority, you assign the defect to someone, so the developer. So for now, it's just me. Who is detected by, so for yourselves, it'll be you. When it was detected, and the defect type. So you have different defect types. You have defect, You can raise a defect for documentation, you can raise an observation, and when you get to a more advanced level, you can test packages, etc. But right now I've kept it simple to these 3 different things. So by testing documentation, it's pretty much looking at the requirements, or if you guys have wireframes, looking at wireframes, and when you initially receive the software, you look at the wireframe, the home page is meant to have an image on the left-hand side, but the image on the right-hand side. So you fail that straight away, because the documentation says it's on the left. So you're testing documentation as well. And then a defect is a bug. And observation is just, maybe the image is too small, the user can't see it. It's not a defect as such, maybe the end users or the stakeholders might be happy with that, but we can raise it and say, that's a bit difficult to see that. So I'm just going to keep it here to track. And then in the comments you put reproduction steps, especially for manual testing, where you'd go on to, you tell the developer exactly how to get to that bug so they can reproduce it. What we usually do with bugs is we'd get in a meeting and reproduce it for them. So then if it's in a new state, they can accept it and say, yeah, it's a bug, put it to open.
Right.
So for example, navigate to an example website, click on the About Us page, click on contact information, and a map should appear, but the actual outcome is the map does not appear. And that's how the developer would then get to that defect.
Have you got a column there for operating system and browser as well?
Not on this one. The operating system browser is just going the defect summary.
In the
That's
summary.
What we usually
Okay.
do there. But again, different companies might have different practices. It just depends on the tool you use.
I suppose these guys as well could take what you've created there and modify it, adapt it to their own needs as well, couldn't they?
By all means, yeah.
Yeah.
I've just based it off HPALM, which is the tool we use right now. This is the columns it has in simple terms.
I see.
But by all means, you can, if you know the devices you're going to be using, add a column, get some data validation in there, and create a drop-down list and say Mac, Windows, iOS, whatever you need to. But before you start testing, I have to do this. I know you're not going to commit fraud or order some shoes or whatever, but yeah, just be aware if you do any of this. Our sales rock and University of Salford are not. You're not liable for it. You could go to jail. You're not going to do any of this. And when you are testing, you have to keep in mind retrospectives. So what you want to continue doing, what you need to stop doing, and what you need to start doing. So when we did the defective challenge 2 weeks ago at Rock, one thing we notice is if we give people a list of 5 websites to start testing, they don't talk to each other. They don't say, I'll test that, I'll test that, I'll test that. Leave them to for now and let's get on with it. Or we don't hear anyone saying, you use a mobile, you use a tablet, I'll use a PC. They just get stuck in because they're so excited to start testing. And this is why we tell people to keep in mind, look at what you're doing, what you want to carry on doing, look at what you need to stop doing, and what maybe you need to start thinking about doing. So retrospectives, just keep that in mind. And get your devices out ready. Let me give you some bells first. Show one bell.
Vital bell.